everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today we've got another episode of Collaboration Station. It's VIP Kid Teachers That Homeschool. And I'm not a homeschooling parent. My kids are much older and grew up overseas where I didn't know how to homeschool back then. So super excited to meet everybody on this panel. And let's see. Mary, I think you were here first. You want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Mary Maple, and I live in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. And along with being a homeschool teacher and other things that I do, I did homeschool my now 21-year-old son all the way through. So he never went to school of any kind. And what I define my homeschooling style as is unschooling. So we never used a curriculum. I like to say I never taught him anything, which is not really true, but that was the style of my teaching, was for him to discover what he was passionate about and provide the resources so he could learn that way. So it was never a set out lesson for him.
All right. And I love that story. So I can't wait to hear more about that in just a second. I think, Michelle, you were next. Michelle is a new face here. You want to say hello? And
yes.
Where did we find you?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I am a certified teacher. I taught for many years in the classroom. And when I had my own children, my passion changed. And so something I never imagined I would do, all of a sudden I was homeschooling and loving it. So I have a 12-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a 3-year-old son. And we have had different things happen in our lives, difficult pregnancy or sickness or whatever. And so we homeschool hard. And then when life happens, we learn about life, and we learn how mom and dad rely on each other and rely on God. And we just, really just teach them about life. So now we are currently doing a Becca Academy unaccredited. Okay. So and we love it. It really gives my daughter, the 12-year-old, the independence that she needed to just push forward and do it. And it gives me time to focus on the other two boys, the other two children, because she can be more independent.
Good. All right, let's see. Melissa, you're not muted. How about you go next?
All right, hello. So I'm teacher Melissa, again with VIP Kid Friends is my group. But I've been teaching VIP Kid for almost 3.5. Yeah, so next month it'll be 3.5 years. And I've been homeschooling 9 years.
Wow.
And I've done a little bit of everything. I did it all, so I taught before I homeschooled. And so for the first the little elementary years, I kind of put curriculum together and did it myself. Like we used Read Well, we used Matthew C. We just read books the kids were interested in, things like that. And then maybe through their middle school years, we did some co-ops where they would go 1 day a week and then do the rest of their work at home with me. But when we got into high school, we're kind of doing things differently last year. And of course, this year, just starting this year, I have a senior, a 9th grader, and a 7th grader. So the senior is actually doing dual enrollment. So she's taking classes at LaGrange College that are going to count for her senior year, right, but they're also going to count for college credit when she goes to college next year. So that's pretty cool. We're hoping it's going to help the pocketbook a little bit. And then our middle son, who's really into like digital and technical computer science, created a video game last summer and sold it, made some money on it. And he's gotten to a point where, mama can't help you. I don't know how to code. So he's actually going to a charter school. It's called Think Career Academy, and taking some digital classes there. And so the only thing he's doing with me is like literature and composition and math and coding and all that's happening there. But my 7th grader, he's my only one that's still here, all with me. And we do a Becca Academy as well.
Oh, okay. Good. Cool. All right, Rachel, I think you were here next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Schwinghammer, and I've only, hello, hey, everyone. And Michelle, Melissa, Mary, and Kasie. So good. This is only my 2nd year homeschooling, so I still feel very new. I feel like I could learn a lot from everybody that's been doing it longer and that sort of thing. My kids being so young, and we have a 1st grader, kindergartner, and then almost preschooler. So she mostly kind of plays with materials and tries to circle the A, and she can, but needs a little bit of guidance. So I've been with VIPKid for 4 years this December, and did VIPKid outside of having a baby, because I have 4 kids. I've had a kid every 17 months to 2 years for the past 6 years. And so it's been nice doing it in between, and took a little bit of time off, usually 1 month to 6 weeks for when I had a child, and then jump back in. So I don't know, looking forward so right now I'm not doing as much, with COVID that happened, and having a kid, and then I just took some time off like then, and it's been harder for me starting up again, but yeah, that's okay. I mean, I had the open spots open, but when you lose the kids for a couple months because they're off, it's difficult for them to. Then the COVID thing, they're like, I think parents are wondering, why aren't people booking her? Well, I had a full schedule before, thank you. So it's very interesting. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that when they've had a kid and taken time off, but with COVID, so it's picking back up now. The school started.
Somebody else was just mentioning that in our group too.
Yeah, so
I think Evelyn's like,
that's all right. I'm okay with.
Well,
I had a time where I got up at 4 a.m. and did hours worth of stuff, and that's hard when you have an infant at the same time and are pumping for that infant too.
Right.
So I'm okay with it backing off. To be realistic, I like doing the YouTube stuff a lot more. So in some ways, I'm kind of thankful.
Yeah.
Rachel and I recently collabed on her channel. She interviewed me. So that's a lot of fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
Check it
I
out.
haven't met Michelle before, so hello, Michelle. And I haven't gotten to talk to several of you very much. So hi, I'm Evelyn. I have a channel called Evelyn Joy. It's growing a little bit. So anyway, I'm new to homeschooling. My mom homeschooled me like kindergarten, half of 2nd grade, and sophomore year of high school. So I'm a little bit familiar with homeschooling. But it was okay. I'm going to talk about things kind of from the perspective of a Christian. It seems like God closed all the doors, and homeschooling was the door that was wide open, so it kind of like our options is like, well, the public schools in our area, no way. and then Christian school, but we have 4 kids and it's expensive with just 1. And then homeschooling was like, and then COVID hit, and it's like homeschooling's our only option.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, a lot of the things that are being taught in schools lately and stuff, I want to teach my kids the morals I believe, you know what I mean? And also, anyway, so basically homeschooling went from being this thing I said I would never do to being like this awesome thing that I believe in now. And I'm like, I definitely want to homeschool my kids for 18 years now. I'm like, crazy.
Oh, yeah. I didn't do it till we moved. They went to a magnet school in Montgomery, but I feel the same way as Evelyn. Like I used to, like in Montgomery, people would homeschool, and I'd be like, why would you do that? Like that, you are insane. And then we moved over here, and I just feel like God hit me over the head with a hammer. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then we did it for 3 months, and I was like, hey, I kind of like this.
Well, so. I hated homeschooling as a kid, but I would have loved homeschooling the way I'm doing it with my kids, because I'm a social butterfly, and I just felt like I was trapped in a cage, like I couldn't do anything. I was just stuck at home, and I didn't get to socialize. I felt like I was being punished. But I have 4 kids close in age. Like we have play dates, and we used to get to go fun places. Now everything's at home basically. But I, built a puppet stage. I built a, garden, and I made a funny video about it. Like, trying to be a fun mom in 2019 versus trying to be a fun mom in 2020. All of it's like inside of my house, things I'm trying to make life fun. So my oldest, she's like barely under the age to be starting 1st grade. But last year I tried to start her in kindergarten early, but I realized I couldn't afford Christian school. So I just kind of, I've worked as an ELL aide in the public schools and stuff. So I just kind of knew the goals for kindergarten, and I just unofficially, without curriculum, really just kind of taught her all the kindergarten stuff kind of. So then this year it was like so should I do kindergarten or should I do first grade? So I'm kind of like combining and doing kind of a review of kindergarten and beginning first grade type stuff. So she's like learning to read and learning a lot of math facts. And I've basically just got goals for the things you learn in first grade. So I don't have like officially, like I have a lot of workbooks that I've bought and I've got a lot of easy reader books, but then like we're gardening and we're cooking and my mother-in-law, my family's bilingual, but with my mother-in-law, we only speak Spanish. So I asked my mother-in-law to specifically work on speaking Spanish with her on Saturdays because my kids listen to Spanish and understand it, but they respond in English. But I want to work on her with responding in Spanish. And so my kids can really be truly bilingual. So I'm realizing that with homeschooling, your kids have such an advantage because they have like a one-on-one tutor all the time. Because like if she writes her letters backwards, if she were to do that in school, she would turn in the paper, get it marked wrong, and then get it back. But if I catch her writing her letters backwards, I can be, I'm not, nothing against kindergarten teachers, Kasie, I'm sorry.
It's not offensive or anything. I'm just saying it's not really kindergarten. We don't really correct people so much like that all the time. But
okay. Well, I don't know. But I mean, it's nice to like catch it in the moment and be like, how do you do the R? You know. So yeah. Anyway.
Good. So I want to say hello really quick. We have Happy Farms is here. Hey, Danny and Leah and Melissa's here. And I saw Professor Monreal is here from Italy. Awesome. Great to have you. Oh, I miss Italy. Send me back. So that's, they said they live in Italy for many reasons. One being COVID, we are homeschooling. So pretty neat. Are you using a curriculum or are you using your own or are you unschooling? Mary, you want to tell them a little bit about that really quick? Not really quick. We have whatever time you guys want to be here, really. So
yeah, sure. Unschooling for me was very much a project-based type of learning for Gabriel. And Gabriel was the type of child that perhaps could have been placed on the spectrum at an early point, but really what he was is just super focused because now lots of that would not apply to him, but he was just super interested in something and would want to spend all his time on that. So we decided that that was the way he was going to learn. It would be a battle if I wanted to sit down and teach him something specific. But if we could go with whatever he was passionate on, with, and then I just provide resources. So little examples. We lived in downtown Charlottesville in Virginia, and we would go to the downtown mall and walk, and my husband and I would pick up a magazine and look at it, and he'd sit with us. And, one day he said, Mama, why are there no children magazines, that are just free to pick up? And I said, I don't know. He says, what should we do about it? I said, well, what do you think? He said, we should write one. I said, oh, okay. And the most popular magazine in Charlottesville was called Seaville. So I said, so what do you think we should call it? And he goes, Kidville. And I thought, okay, that's brilliant. So the homeschool project was once a month, we would make a little magazine called Kidville. And there would be 12 pages, like, this size. And then he would dictate. He was 4 and 5, so he would dictate his stories to me, and it would all be about the different adventures he had. And then we would staple up 150 copies and we would deliver them throughout town. So he would have to count out 6 and bundle them and keep inventory. And halfway through the week, we would have to go check and see, or halfway through the month, see if anything needed replenishing. So he learned how to do his math that way. He learned his English, literature that way. He learned just all about this project became his tool for learning about the world. We'd go to the fire station and he would interview the fire station workers. We would go to a restaurant, and because they were seeing Kidville around town, he was invited into the kitchen to help cook, and then he'd write about it. So really he dictated about it because he wasn't old enough to actually do the writing. So that is an example of a type of project we would do. And later on it became bear studies or stars or whatever else, but it would all focus around that topic that he was passionate about, and everything would feed into it without saying, okay, now you have to do math. It was not separated into subjects. It was comprehensive project learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. I love hearing about that. I have learned more about homeschooling from all of you guys. I love that homeschooling can be on the road and learning different things and visiting different places, and just, yeah, I don't know. So do you guys, I mean, other than now, this it's kind of hard to talk about this in COVID-19 because I know it's totally different, but do you do like family field trips or learning on the road, or how do you incorporate that? Michelle, what do you think?
Well, we do a lot of learning on the road and definitely field trips, but because I have a 3-year-old, who was a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, was crazy. We kind of had to do local things and shorter trips so that he could still get nap. He's one of those that has to have a structured nap. My other 2 could kind of pass out in the car and be fine, but he needs that quiet space that's familiar to him. So we kind of had to adjust, and before COVID, we would do like morning activities to different farms, or like just like she was saying, to the different businesses like the fire station or the library, and learn about how the library works and things like that. But before, we would do a lot of field trips. We lived in Vidalia, Georgia, so we would visit like Savannah and go out and do historical things out there, or visit national parks and learn about what they had on display. But with a 3-year-old, I'm sure that Rachel can has way more to talk about than I do. But with a 3-year-old or with a baby with younger, you kind of have to just slow down a little and go at their pace. But grandma can also step in and help me navigate, so I can go and do with them, and she goes at the pace of the 3-year-old or stays home with them. So it works. You just make it work for whatever family dynamic you have at that moment. Because I feel like every season we can do a little more, but a little less than, so.
Right. Mm-hmm. Evelyn, how old is Joshy?
Joshy, yeah, my kids are, Joshy's 3. He just turned 3. Yeah.
He
so
loves
I've got
learning.
Caleb's about to turn 9 months. Joshy's 3. Deborah's 4.5, and Esther's about to turn 6. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, the name Gabriel set me off. Sorry. Sorry. Not trying to ruin the video. My bad.
You are perfect. You are fine. Okay, so Melissa, what has your experience been with homeschooling? How was it at first compared to how it is now that you've been doing it for quite a while?
Well, now it's easier. And then also, like I said, I kind of farm it out, right? Anna Claire's going to college. I'm not teaching her statistics. There's a professor teaching her statistics,
Right.
So for me, it's easier. But what I have found is I have trained, and I kind of talked a little bit about this in the chat. I've trained independent learners, right? Because I had 3 kids. And at one point I had a 2nd grader, a 4th grader, and a 6th grader. And I could not be with all of them at the same time, so we had to develop a system where I made a list, and I did this the night before, and I would make a list, and I'd be like, this is what you have to do for math, pages 54 and 50 through 56, and this is what you have to do for reading and whatever. And they knew when they got up in the morning that their list I used to have a homeschool room with a board, and they would go to their table and they would do what they could do themselves. And then I divided my time up, and I would actually write it on our little whiteboard in the morning. And I would say, Camp, you get me from 9 to 10, and Claire, you get me from 10 to 11. We'll have lunch. Then Jonah gets me. And so when they had their time with me, that's when they would say, I don't understand this math. Or I can't do, what do you want me to do with this writing or whatever? And then I would help them with what they needed. But at the end of the day, I got 7 assignments, like 7 subject assignments from all of them. Right. And so I knew they were progressing. And so now I've just trained independent learners. You know, they're going to other teachers. Even when we were doing the co-op one day a week, they were going to other teachers. And so they were getting their assignments and they were getting kind of taught by those teachers. And I was just kind of here to guide them and help them. And I mean, like the senior, I don't do anything. I pretty much get a text every day. Hey, I made a 98 on my exam. Great. You know, because I kind of trained her to do that, to be that independent learner. And I think that was my goal. I mean, even way back when they were third grade and fifth grade and seventh grade, I was thinking I need them to learn how to be lifelong learners and want to do this, be motivated to do this by themselves. And so in that sense, I'm really proud of all of them. They're all doing something different this year, but they're all doing it themselves and they're doing well.
Rachel, you have one that you're working with, both of them, right? Well, and the little one comes in too, but you have like one set one that you do for both of them. Is that right?
Well, I liked it all about reading. I don't know if anybody else have ever heard of it, or All About Learning is the company's name, and then All About Reading, All About Spelling. And so I have a friend who was doing it with her range of kids that kind of around, Evelyn and I have kids that are really almost the same age. And so it's kind of fun. So we're probably going through a lot of the same stuff now, Evelyn. And so my first grader, she missed the cutoff for North Dakota last year by just a couple of days. I wanted to register her. You have to only do it at 7 years old where we live. And so I think that's a pretty common age across the United States, 7. And so I thought, I'll register her, you know. I did teach in the school system a little when I was in college. I taught math and special ed with another teacher. They gave us an assignment, like, these are your kids. I taught math for a couple of years there, and then taught a little bit of kindergarten as an assistant, and then long-term subbing within that same year. But having babies every year, or not every year, but having babies, it was better for my body to stay home, because otherwise I would have contractions while I was pregnant. So really weird, but that's what I do. So we thought, so going the independent path of teaching, it's really cool because then you can teach the kids on their own level, on what's best for them. And I think that's one of the best things. It's like special education stuff on hyperdrive. You know, special education stuff can maybe even include gifted children too. Sometimes they want you to be the one to teach the kids. And so it's cool that you can tailor whatever you're doing to your child. So because of that, at the time, long story short, my 4-year-old was ready to start reading too. And so, no, she was 3. She was 3 and a half. She was ready to start reading with my 5-year-old last year. And so she did the same curriculum with us. And I didn't expect as much writing from her, you know, but she wanted to read, and she was at that level. My first child is a little bit different. You know, she learned all her letters and stuff too, but she wasn't quite like a memorizer like my second child is. She follows kind of like my husband, and in that line of just picking up super fast, basically. So my husband was homeschooled all the way through, and he started college really, really young. He started when you can take, I don't know if anybody knows this, but you can take the ACT at any age. All you need is some kind of ID, picture ID. So in Minnesota, he took the ACT. I'm not saying this to brag, just so everybody knows. But
good to know, though.
Like, people don't know that you can take the ACT as early as you want. And so if you pass it, then you can enter into college. Even if it's online through a local school, you can take online courses. So he took it at 12. It's just what he did. He took the ACT. Wow. He went into full-time college at, he was 13 at the time. He was 14. So he graduated at 19 with a 4-year degree in biology, and then went on to chiropractic school after that. So you can take it earlier if you want to. And if they're ready for it, you know, they can count it as both. The nice thing is post-secondary options are great to look into. If you have a homeschooler and have it count as dual credit, you might as well. So if you have post-secondary options, so that's the kind of why I homeschool, is because I feel like I can give my kids other people can't. I can be, I can teach them where they're at. You know, my 3.5-year-old last year wouldn't have had the opportunity to necessarily enter into school at 3. You know, you just can't. And I'm nothing against the public school system, but Christian school is a little harder on your budget right now, dealing with
Exactly.
the chiropractic load of debt. You know, so it's like a mortgage, just the chiropractic stuff. It's best for us to homeschool, and I get to be there, and all my kids are really close together. So there's people who have closer kids than 2 years, but they can play with each other, and we do play dates and anything out there you can do with the kids. We try to get involved with. So that's a long story short. So she is doing, now she's 4.5. She is doing the same first grade curriculum with us, but I just don't require as many paragraphs or as many sentences. I take it down, like with special education stuff, you tailor it to each student. And so, but she can read it. She's slightly slower decoding at 4.5, but she can still read it, and she'll read it and look up to me like, yeah, I'm like, yep, you're right. So, yeah.
Can I add on a little bit about that dual enrollment?
Yeah.
So like a homeschool, but my husband is also a vice president of enrollment and admissions at a college. That's what he's always done. And I mean, he says it's really good as far as admissions goes. When he gets a homeschool application that has some dual enrollment classes, that shows that that kid has already been in a college environment, hasn't just been at home with mom who's just giving them A's. I mean, because when the mom's making the report card, that's something that could happen when, like he sees it sometimes, I'm just saying. And so he likes it when he kind of sees that real life experience. This child has been to college. They know what it's like, and made a passing grade. So I mean, I know, like, I might be the only one here with a kid applying to college, but in case anybody's watching, that actually helps. That's kind of a leg up with that college application for a high schooler looking for that.
Yeah, colleges usually seem to love homeschoolers, right?
They do.
They do,
because they know too, like, what they're independent learners, right? They know that they've kind of been guided and working on their own, and know how to learn on their own. And when you think about it, college is like that. You could go to class just Tuesday and Thursday, but you have to be dedicated and responsible enough to do those assignments on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So,
and alternatively to starting your college early, for my son, it was his passion became nature, and we spent literally months living in the woods in the national park, and then he became a volunteer. So by the time he was 18, he had enough work experience to qualify him for a job in the Park Service. So homeschooling can also be one of those opportunities to build the level of skills that you might need to just enter into the workforce. For working in the national park, you either need a degree or you need an equivalent level of experience. So Gabriel had bypassed the degree. He will probably go and get it at some point, but he was able to bypass that and enter in at an equivalent level because of his level of experience. And he was able, because he was unschooled, to develop his level of expertise. He published his first book at 10, his second at 16. He became a national bird guide at 17. He represented an optics company by the time he was 16. He was out there as a professional. He's been on talk shows, just different things as a student, because he developed his expertise. He didn't have to siphon off his interests and do these other things that were less interesting. It was all, what is he really passionate about, and how can he become an expert at that? And I think that for him was really the biggest advantage, is establishing himself with a depth of knowledge in something that led to his career choice.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And Mary, I remember you said on my channel before the names of the books. Can you tell us the names? I went and looked them up last time, but
yes. So the first book is called Oh No, Gertrude, and so it is a true story of a black bear in Shenandoah National Park that got into a lot of trouble because people left out their picnic food, right? So we know the photographer, and we saw the photographer's pictures. So we saw the pictures, and Gabriel said, how can we help Gertrude? And I said, what do you think? We should write the story. Well, he'd already been making Kidville, and he'd had a lot of, he's a writer. So I said, okay. And I thought we'd take it on as a family project. Rodney said, sure, let's partner together. So one time my husband and I were having a meeting and Gabriel said, what should I do? And I said, why don't you start the book? And I was just thinking we were going to write it together, but let him start. He said, how do I do it? I said, draw a square for a picture and then start writing the story, and maybe start with, we'll do the life, a year in the life of Gertrude, and then how she got in trouble in the middle of that. So after an hour and a half, he comes knocking on her door. He goes, I'm finished. And I said, the whole book? And he read it and it was like, there's the story. So that became the framework for his book. And then we helped him edit it. And then he did the initial layout. So he took Rodney's pictures. He showed us how he wanted it laid out. And it became a tremendous homeschooling project that has to now sold like 14,000 copies. So I mean, it's in different national parks across the country. So at 16, after, literally from March through November, we, for a couple of years, lived in the park. We would camp for 3 nights, come home, I'd cook food. 2 days later, we'd go out again, be out for 3 or 4 nights, come home. And he had a study area in the park. It was 3 miles long and whatever he could hike on either side. And he documented all the bears there. We studied the behavior. That became his life. He's a bear expert. And so his second book was all his own photographs. So his photographs and his stories. So that one's called My Life with Black Bears. And, he's now got 2 published books. And
My Life, those both sound like awesome books to read.
Yeah. So, and letting him follow his passion with this opened up. So I thought it was a homeschooling project. We didn't really know it would be a successfully published book, but there was a bear biologist in Alaska that said, come on up on the tundra and look at the bears with me that I study. We went to Algonquin Park in Ontario, and we were invited out to radio collar black bears. He was on a TV talk show in Ontario. He's been the brown bag lunch speaker at a couple of different universities. And the only time he's ever gone to school is when he went in and did programs to teach kids about either A, writing books, or B, what black bears are. So his whole world started snowballing into these experiences that we never thought would be possible had we not allowed him to just fully immerse himself in what he was passionate about.
Great.
Can I step in for a second?
Please, yeah.
I just wanted to say, I know Melissa's daughter is too, but my daughter is very passionate about dance. So ballet, tap, jazz, lyrical, you name it, and she does it. And when you're, think about, I was a public school student, and the most stressful times in my parents' day probably was that evening when you get your kids home from school and it's dinner, it's bath, it's homework, it's if they're doing sports, and quickly get them to bed. And it's just the most tense and stressful moments of the day, aside from getting them to school in the morning. So when you are homeschooling, you get to adjust your schedule. Yes. You get to decide, okay, if we have homework, it's all homework, really, but if we have homework, it's, what you're going to call homework, that independent work, basically. We can do it first thing in the morning. They can do it anytime during the day. Our evenings are free. So when my daughter's doing competitive dance and competition, she's able to go off to these conferences and not worry about tests on Monday or schoolwork or anything. Her mind is clear just for the dance. And awesome. And then, when it's evening time and she does American Heritage Girl or dance, and my son will do, Cub Scouts and other things. When we're running kids to all those things, I don't have homework in the back of my head. I don't have, there's a test tomorrow. We'll do it later. We'll do it tomorrow afternoon after we prep again, whatever. It makes your life a lot less stressful because you can really focus on the joy part of life, and just adjust things to work for you and take the stress out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like Jonah, he's interested in all these things. Well, like if he was going to school and he had to be at school 7:30 to 3:30, and I had to go pick him up and bring him home and do homework and help him, there's no way I could have been like, oh yeah, you want to make a video game? Like that's good. He struggles a little bit with math, and I mean the biggest strides we saw, the most progress we saw with math was when he was learning to code and make that video game. He can do algebra now when he could not even do long division before we decided to put him in this course. It was online to help him learn how to code and make a video game. And, within 3 months he did that. So he was following his passion, right? Like he was doing what he wanted to do. Like Gabriel likes to write, but it was also helping him with something that he needed help with. But I guarantee you, if I had put a Matthew C. or a Saxon book in front of him and I said, do these assignments and watch this video, like you would have just seen that fire drain out of him. He would not wanted to do it. But with this, he was motivated and was able to do it. And that's something too, I feel like they can't, people wouldn't have been able to kind of cater to that in a school for him.
Exactly.
It's definitely an advantage of homeschooling. I'm the opposite end. I was the one running around like crazy, full-time job. My kids went to school. Yeah, I get it.
In my home, college, we've been gardening this year. It's our first time doing a fruit and vegetable garden, and it's been crazy because since last year I took my kids to the zoo, the children's museum, the mall, we were doing all the things, the library, wherever. And now it's like, oh, we have to be here. So we do out school classes, and I decided to sign up for ABC Mouse so she can do those little activities on the iPad or whatever. And we decided to build a fence and kind of make like a little, swing and play area. And my thought was that my kids could play while I garden, but like they always want to garden. So they're helping me, harvest the tomatoes or water the garden or it's fun because they get to say, hey mom, this pepper's big enough, can I pull it? And then I'm like, sure, you want to eat it? And then they can eat it right there. And then
that's my favorite part is when they're like, mom, when they pick it.
And then we've like harvested our cantaloupe and our watermelon, and we get to eat what we grew. And it's so cool because like I kind of feel like I didn't really know how to cook or garden or any of this stuff. So I'm like, as an adult, figuring out how to adult. And my kids are like learning right alongside me, and they're like going to be little geniuses. I had to learn Spanish as an adult. My kids are growing up bilingual. Like my oldest is taking piano lessons. And then one day I heard someone playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star perfectly. And I look over and my daughter that takes piano lessons was right next to me. And I'm like, who's playing the piano? And it was my 4.5-year-old, because I didn't teach her piano. She didn't take the lessons, but Esther taught it to Deborah. So I see like how I just teach one of them. And then the other ones, it's like Esther's just now starting to learn how to read. But Deborah, who's 4.5, and Josh, who's 3, they're starting to learn to read too, because they see their sister doing it and they're like, well, I want to too. And so it's nice that they're close in age because they're learning from each other. And you can't say my kids aren't socialized. My kids have to share and everything, like every day they're constantly having to do that. And we sometimes have play dates and have friends over, but we're not able to go to the zoo and the children's museum anymore right now. But yeah, anyway.
You have young kids like that. If they want to have a good day, I mean, just for them, not just for your sanity, but for them, if they want to have a good day, they have to learn how to like get along and share. So they learn those social skills. But I will tell you, I hear a lot, like how respectful and how social my children are, because similar to all of you, before COVID, we would do things like when they were little, we would go to library reading hours. We would go to hands-on kids science museums and field trips with our homeschool association. And we would, they weren't just stuck at home with me. They were out doing things with kids their age. But then they also did things like go to the bank with me. and go to the grocery store with me and go have a meeting with the insurance agent because we got a new car. And so they learned how to, you know, shake hands and introduce themselves and sit and entertain themselves. And so I hear a lot of compliments on that behavior as well.
And to piggyback on that is when you're homeschooled, it's not just same age. You know, I think that one of the real opportunities for homeschooled kids is that intergenerational, really, because, you know, Gabriel has friends that are 60 years old. He has friends that are little. Like, it's that whole spectrum. You're not limited to just your same age peers. And I think to me, sometimes you hear the concern that homeschool kids won't be socialized. In many ways, I think their social skills are so much greater because of that, like you're saying.
I grew up in the public school, and the note that the teachers wrote that was negative about me was that I talk too much. So
Me too.
how's that for socialization?
Me too. Like, I would like to take a poll. How many of us talk too much in school? Because, like, yeah.
But that's why we're here.
I know. It's why we do this.
Just to show like another little aspect of being able to take whatever your child's passionate about, like what we just kind of said over and over and over. My daughter is really good friends with one of the kid baking challenge. She was on the kid baking show. There we go. And she was not the winner, but we were rooting Sailor Heron on. I mean, you know, and she's awesome. Well, we're good friends with their family. And so Michaela watched all of those and would watch during the day and learn the technique. Anyways, this girl can bake. So this is my daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And she was able to perfect her skills in a time when other kids were in school. And so she's doing measurements and, you know, tweaking it. And that's a little too sweet. What can I add to offset it? And things like that. And she went to, she decorated it. She did the entire thing, but she took it to my dad's house and decorated it there in front of tons of children that are running around and screaming. And she's able to just be in her own little world. And this is her and my dad.
Wow.
Wow.
Here's her carrot.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Caramelized something.
Completely made from scratch with little carrot.
Look at that.
And then here's cupcakes she made for the little ones that might not like carrot.
Oh, pretty.
Wow.
And this morning, we were painting a little area that's going to be her and our craft station. This is her painting.
Yeah.
And, you know, just things that you don't get to experience if you were at school for 8 hours a day and then on the school bus, an hour there, hour back. You know, you come home and you're exhausted and you got to get ready for the next day. But homeschool, you spend so much more quality time in what you're passionate about.
And I think the homeschool student, they haven't lost knowing who they are. They stay connected to their core. Where if you're sent to a school, it can be really easy to just be told constantly what you need to do, what you need to focus on, which may or may not be your interest. And you lose touch with yourself. And so there's so many kids that come out of the school system not knowing what they want to do because they haven't had a chance to follow their passion. But when you're homeschooling, there's more opportunity to follow what you're truly interested in and focus your energy there, so that by the time you are grown up, you have a stronger sense of who you are in the world and how you want to express that in terms of a job.
I feel like they also learn just life skills, right?
Absolutely.
So like my kids know how to change a tire. They know how to change their oil. They know how to cook. They know how to change the filter in the air system, because that was a lesson one day. Dad's going to go change the filter in the air system. And so as they grow into adulthood and they're on their own, they're not going to end up, you know, not knowing how to do some things you need to do as an adult. I mean, there's a lot of examples, but those are just a few. And even like laundry, like my kids are homeschooled. And so I taught them how to do their laundry when they were 8, and when they turned, like I would help them and I would guide them. But when they're 9 years old, they're in charge of their own laundry. If they want clean clothes, they have to go watch it. They know how to do it. And I feel like I didn't know how to do that. I was an
Mhm.
adult who ended up, you know, at college and, you know, called my mom from that big laundry mat room, you know, what do I do? You know, and she was like, do you have soap? And I was like, I need soap, you know? So like, I feel like my kids are going to be so much more prepared for things like that because along with teaching them, right, math, science, history, writing, I also taught them, you know, how to cook and do their clothes and handle things with their car, things like that.
Now, I had seen a question up here. Danny had asked this, and maybe we can tell her later. Aww. How do you handle that when your student doesn't take teaching from mom well? What would you guys say to that?
Yeah, Evelyn.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say I really enjoy doing OutSchool a little bit because, and also having like ABC Mouse on the iPad and stuff, because I don't ever want it to be me like forcing, like standing over, like, you have to do this, because that might work for my first child who's a people pleaser, but my second child's strong-willed and she's going to tell me no to my face, and it's not going to be good. That's why it's so awesome that my first child taught my second child piano, because I can't be like, you have to practice piano, because that's not going to fly with her. So I really like OutSchool because kids sometimes respond better to a different teacher that's not their parent. So because they're like, oh, I want to impress teacher Danny, so I'm going to do really well writing my letters and stuff. And then later, like, my kids, teacher Danny is the one that commented, my kids have taken like reading and math with Danny, and so they'll do their homework. Danny's my friend. She gives me gardening advice. She's Happy Farms on YouTube. She's a VIPKid teacher. Anyway, so she'll do her homework and she'll be like, Mom, take a picture of me with my homework, and I'll text it to Danny, and then Danny will send like a voice message like, good job, Esther. So it's nice having that feeling of, oh, I have it. Send this to my teacher or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway,
You have that village, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, when my kids were younger, it was easier to be like, hey, here's your work, do it. And I was the only one in charge. But I tell people, I kind of laugh and I say, are you interested in any homeschool curriculum? Ask me, because I probably used it, right? We did classical conversations. We did The Good and the Beautiful. We've done Matthew C. and Saxon and, you know, all of those. And, you know, I mean, my garage is full. I've got like 6 bookshelves full of curriculum because I was willing to move and try different things for the kids. But what I found worked best, especially like Evelyn just mentioned, you know, for my middle and my youngest child, who aren't just wanting to please me. They're going to tell me no, or they're going to ask me why they have to do it. Well, they went to co-op one day a week. And so there was another adult that, you know, was giving them assignments that they wanted to do well for, you know, in traditional kind of co-ops. So I would encourage people to look for that. Amanda just asked, you know, how do you get started? Right. Search up for, like, look on Google for homeschool associations. I know in West Georgia, we have a huge one, West Georgia Homeschool Association, that I've been involved with since the beginning. They have meetings, they have, you know, they'll sell used curriculum that they'll help you, but they also are there to kind of give you the resources. Here are the co-ops that are in our area, and here are the opportunities that are available for you. And maybe like when COVID passes, there'll be some field trips, you know, the homeschool associations would do field trips and things. And I would just take that help. And I have found that other homeschool moms are more than willing to help new homeschool moms. I've given away a lot of curriculum. I don't have a 5th grader anymore. So if somebody's starting to homeschool their 5th grader, I'll be like, do you think you're interested in apology of science? Here's 5th grade apology of science stuff. And they can go try that. But definitely connect with people in your area. I feel like that's the best way to kind of get started.
I had a VIPKid teacher from my area. She's also a YouTuber. She reached out to me and she was like, hey, I'm doing a homeschool co-op. Do you want to come? And I was like, I didn't even realize you live in my area. So we're going to be doing that starting next week. We've just got like five families that are going to be doing it like once a week. But I mean, it's interaction with other people if nothing else, but it's kind of cool to do that.
You can, you know, you're homeschooling. You're not on a timeline. So you can stop. If this is not working for your child, if every day is a stressful experience and you feel like it's that afternoon after school kind of experience, stop and make it fun. If measurement isn't working with the textbook, stop and bake with your kid and use measurements. And anytime I'm teaching measurements, I just say, let's stop, go into the kitchen. Let's find things that are these quantities and look at them. What are the differences? Let's measure out the milk or whatever. And you can do that with anything. Everything that your child is struggling with, stop. Go on Pinterest. Find a way to make it interesting. Find a way to make it hands-on, because you're not on a timeline. I have to write that for myself, because as a previous school teacher, you are on a timeline. Yeah. You have to cover this curriculum by the end or by the, the standardized test date. You have to, but as a homeschool mom, no, you don't have to. I can go at my own child's pace. There will be something else that she gets just like this, and we'll move, really fast, and we'll catch up if we need to. But you're at your own pace, so take advantage of that.
That's exactly right, Michelle. I think that's kind of the unschooling approach, realizing that there are so many different ways to learn. So for Gabriel, like I said, he did not want to be taught, but I would flip it and I would become the master of the open-ended question. So I never tried to teach him anything. I would say, wow, I wonder how many bears can actually all exist in this number of square miles. Like, what's the carrying capacity? So he had to learn how to do area, and he had to learn how to do, figure out, how many, just different percentages. Or when we were looking at the stars, he became fascinated at a really early age and wanted a telescope and looked at the stars. Well, when you're looking at deep sky objects that are not visible, you have to learn measurement of angles, right? He didn't think I was teaching him anything. I was like, well, how are we going to find that? We can't see it. And he said, well, we have to start here and then go over this many degrees. Well, you have to find out what the degrees were. And then he taught me how to do it. So making your child the teacher when you play dumb, it's awesome, because they want to show what they can know. They want to excel at it. So let them be the teacher. Just don't know anything. Don't know a thing, and let them figure out how to tell you all about it. And it worked for my son. That's what worked. I could not sit down and teach him, but he had the opportunity to teach me everything. Yeah,
that's great.
Awesome.
So we had some resources. Mary, you want to tell about the resource we put for them? That was kind of state by state, right?
Yes, so every state has their own regulations for homeschooling, and it really varies from one to another. I know here in Virginia, it depends on your own academic background, what the requirements are for you to homeschool your child. So if you have a high school diploma, then you do need to follow an approved curriculum. If you have a bachelor's degree, you're allowed to create your own curriculum. It starts varying depending on your own background. Wow. And then also what you need to, in Virginia, at least when I was homeschooling, how to be accountable for your students' progress had some variables. You could create a portfolio, or you could do some standard testing, or for me, I filed religious exemption, which meant that I was totally exempt from any kind of form of compulsory education. So once that was approved, when Gabriel was in kindergarten, I was totally removed from the education system, and he never had to do any reporting for his whole 12 years. So there are different forms, and every state will have a different requirements, some more lax, some more stringent. And so that link that we placed there will allow you to go to your state to figure out what your regulations are. And then again, there will be often a state association for homeschoolers that can really help you discern what the requirements are.
Very good. And Michelle, you had a couple that we added for your groups. You want to let them know about those?
Yes, I recently, since COVID, started a new group, and it's just called To Homeschool.
Okay, cool.
And this one is just for seasoned homeschooled parents to kind of jump in and help, because, you know, my oldest is 12. Melissa has a lot more knowledge past that than I do. So, you know, we all come together and help new homeschool families. I had a lot of time to think through, what curriculum am I going to use? Let me kind of set up a little homeschool room. Let me figure this out. These moms with, you know, through COVID, they haven't had time. It's just, let's jump in and figure it out because I'm scared, or because I don't know what else to do, or because the school system was, you know, failing my kid anyway. And now it makes sense. You know, I should have pulled them out sooner, but here we go. And so just giving them resources that I have found along the way, or that, like Melissa said and others have said, where other homeschool moms have like grabbed me and just said, like, you got this, you can do this year. Melissa has grabbed me and said, you know, you got this. I know you got a newborn and you had a rough pregnancy, but don't give up. You got this, you know? And so just being that for other moms, being that person that people jumped in and worked for me. So, but through this page, I'm constantly sharing homeschool ideas, you know, just places to go that are cheap or free, or curriculum, giving them ideas and just answering questions, just being there.
And there is one for VIP Kid teachers. Are you in the community directory?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you're a VIP Kid teacher, I did put the link below, but she has it listed in the community too. So
yes, and through that one, I mean, it's just over 2,000 homeschool moms, VIP Kid moms, and we just bounce ideas off each other and are there to support each other. And you don't have to be a homeschool mom or dad. You just have to be a VIP Kid teacher to be in that group. Either one of the groups. You just have to be a person,
especially,
you know, to be
now,
in the other
right?
one.
Right. Especially now, I feel like we've had a lot of VIP Kid teachers who kind of thrown into homeschooling with COVID, like even homeschooling through like their school systems or something they've joined. And we've been able to kind of be like, well, you know, slow down. Don't feel like you know, you are in charge. Essentially, I feel like we've done a lot of, it's okay. Like take a deep breath with those parents. So yeah, definitely don't feel like you have to be traditional homeschooler to join that group.
There's even some in there who are just like doing virtual learning through the school and just kind of thinking, am I going to take this further and do true homeschool, or what are we going to do? But even virtually learning, you still need some of those skills to kind of time manage and help them through it.
And VIP Kid works well. That's why I even found VIP Kid. You know, I didn't work. We moved over here, I started homeschooling, didn't work. And then of course you get the kids grow up, right? You need more money. So, hey, I need to go back to work, but I want to keep homeschooling. And that's how I found VIP Kid, and it works well. I mean, I am done. By the time I'm done teaching, I go wake up my kid. Now I have teenagers. So I know if you have young kids, they're up. But for my 12, 14, and 16-year-old, I go wake them up at 9 o'clock. But I consider that an advantage too, right? They're not waking up at 6 a.m. to get ready to catch a bus at 7 to get to school by 7:30. They're able to kind of rest until 9, and then I wake them up, and look, that's enough time. We're usually done with work by 1 p.m.
Great. So for the veterans here, what advice would you give to new homeschooling parents like Evelyn or like other ones watching this? What would be your maybe one tip or a couple good tips?
Don't be scared. If I can do it, you can do it. And there's a lot of resources out there. And despite, you know, how you feel you might be at it, you are your child's best teacher, no matter how you decide to do it.
You're going to have good days and bad days, like every public school teacher, like every businesswoman, you know, whatever. Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your kids. You know, every day is new. Every minute is new. Just transition, change gears. If this isn't working, let's find something else that is. And use your community. I'm part of a homeschool group in Carrollton, and we, as a public school teacher and private school, I did both. You know, you're at first when you're homeschooling, you're like, oh, my kids are missing out on Build Day, Valentine's Day parties, Christmas parties, you know, all those things. No, there are so many groups out there. The homeschool group we're a part of, they do all of those parties. So my kids are coming in and, they're excited and they're dressed up or whatever. And we do field trips together. Through the public school, you might be able to do 1 or 2 at most field trips before COVID. You can do as many as you want as a homeschool family, and go as far as you want. And so just take advantage of those resources that are not available to a child in school all day long.
So in your states, do you have the option of doing like math and art? I mean, not math, art and music and PE at the school? The school I taught at, the homeschoolers could come in for specials and field trips and any kind of party. Like they would be assigned to a room and they could come in for specials and things like that. Is that?
Oh, well, I never heard of it being parties. Have you guys? But I do know it could be like, oh, okay.
As the teacher, you know what I mean? If they're assigned to my room, I'm just going to send it to them, they go to specials, they know the kids, but like Thanksgiving party or whatever.
I have found that a lot of the private schools will allow, for a fee, they will allow your child to come in and do sports.
Sports, yeah.
Sports or maybe art. We have not tried it. We're doing, sports outside of, like, more still in the rec department. But once you get it to an older age where rec's not available anymore, that's where you could step in and do that. But we're not there yet.
I would say that's what I've seen. The private school here in LaGrange, you can pay that academic fee and then pay an additional fee, and your high schooler could play soccer or football or baseball with them, because the rec department only goes through 12 years old here in LaGrange, Georgia. But I've not really seen the parties, but I think that's super cool. Yeah.
Well, and I had a military community, so it was it's a little bit different, but we had 15 kindergarten classrooms, so there was tons of kids on this. Yeah, that's just kindergarten, 15 classrooms, so there's tons of kids there. But we had a lot of homeschoolers that would come in just for specials and different things. But
that's so cool.
That's neat.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of resources. I mean, all those resources like ballet that's available to every child, the homeschoolers do that. And here there's a choir, there's a drama club. I think just the resources are ever growing. I mean, I've seen that happen over my 9 years. Like there wasn't a drama club where homeschoolers could go and be cast in a play and put on a play before. That recently just happened here about 4 years ago. So, and I think, like, this is me kind of looking into my crystal ball, but I think those are going to continue to grow. I think there's a huge community of parents that have kind of been thrown into this head first and decided, they did it maybe like what the school's curriculum, or they wanted to do it differently and might continue to do it. So I see all of those resources growing.
Yeah. Evelyn.
Even though I'm a newbie, I want to share something that I learned. Can I share?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I did was I kind of like realized, wow, okay, so I want a good first grade curriculum, right? So I put on Facebook, what's the best first grade homeschool curriculum? And I got a bunch of different responses.
Yeah.
All of them, I looked them up and they're all hundreds of dollars. And I'm like, oh, can I afford to homeschool? That's my next thing. And I want to say, while I was researching, I found there's an ebook online, and for just $8, you can get an ebook for how to homeschool for free. I'm like, well, why does that cost $8? Okay, but but all that to say, like, if you're like me and you don't have hundreds of dollars to drop on curriculum, there are other options out there. Like, my daughter's doing some out school classes and they're just like $10 a class or whatever. And also we got ABC Mouse on the iPad and that's like $10 a month and stuff. So it's not so much money. And then also I got like math workbooks and stuff from Walmart and Dollar Tree and stuff, and easy reader books from Amazon and stuff. So like I'm kind of like taking, and then people told me, oh, you're homeschooling? Let me give you a box full of like craft supplies and homeschool books and stuff. So like talk to your people, because after I posted that and everybody was like, oh yeah, we have favorite curriculums and they're all super expensive, I was like, oh well, maybe I can't afford homeschooling. I'm
No.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely that's why, usually it's cheap, less than $10 to join your homeschool association. And I guarantee you those veteran homeschoolers are going to want to help you. And their garage is probably just as full of curriculum as mine. And if that's what you want, they're going to be able to, they will help you because they understand. Most homeschooling families are one income families. So yeah, absolutely. Use those resources. And like Khan Academy is free. I mean,
What's
and that's
that?
excellent math.
Oh, that's a good
Oh,
one.
excellent.
KHAN.
Mhm.
We use it in the
Spell
school
that
too.
wrong.
Yeah.
Khan, yeah, CHAN, Khan Academy.
There's
Um,
easy peasy, and there's education.com, and you can do worksheets and like generate things on there. Education.com.
Yeah. Easy peasy is free. Is easy peasy free, Michelle?
Well, it was when I looked into it. If you want to get the worksheet, the workbooks and stuff, people said that you order them. But when I looked into it, I needed something for my 12-year-old to just push on and do by herself. And we love Abeka, but there are many free options. And you can, if you wanted to do something like Abeka, join an Abeka used curriculum Facebook page. And
Yes.
you can get them at a fraction of the price on there.
Oh, yes. Like, for instance, 7th grade parent kit on Abeka, $561. Bought it off of Abeka used homeschool from last year. Just a parent who taught her 7th grader last year said, hey, do you want my parent kit? $90. Oh, yeah. I bought the $90 kit. Like, you just kind of have to look into those. I guess.
How do you spell Abeka?
Oh, ABEKA. ABEKA.
I think the other thing to realize is there are so many different philosophies of homeschooling and so many different philosophies of teaching, from, like the unschooling that I follow, to Waldorf education, to, more structured, more Christian curriculum. There's all kinds. So whatever your desire is, whatever you want your approach to be, there's going to be probably a Facebook group for it, but also curriculum or idea books, or just following your own guidance.
I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like my kids, like I grew up with, most of the time, single mom that had to work a lot. So like we were at public school and then we were at home a lot of times alone and stuff. So we didn't learn how to like cook or do our own laundry or do gardening, or like I learned how to, my mom knows how to sew, but I learned how to sew at school. But my kids are like learning all this stuff and they're little.
Exactly.
Like, you guys have so many advantages. And I remember just like talking about field trips. I remember, my mom, she was like a substitute teacher at the time when like she didn't get to go to, she was a high school art teacher some years and stuff. She didn't get to go to field trips. And I remember looking at other moms and being like, I wish my mom could come to the field trip or whatever. And like our kids get too much of us and they probably want more space from us, but it's like, you guys don't even know how good you have it. You know what I mean? It's just really, really cool. We get to spend that special time with our kids because they grow up way too fast.
Yeah, tell me about it. And Renee says, give yourself and your children grace. I thought that was really good.
You trust your children. Trust your child. What you want for them by the time they graduate is to know how to learn. Okay. I don't personally think they have to learn everything. I think they just need to know how to learn so that when they're ready to tackle something, they know how to go about it. They don't need to have all the answers. I wasn't caught up on making sure Gabriel had all his different math skills because, he may or may not need to use those. I could never figure out cosines and tangents and all that crap. So, and I struggled with it in high school and I've never used it since. So I didn't think that would be important to teach him. But I did want to make sure he had the basis incorporated into his discovery so that when he is applying himself to something new, he can do it. He just finished EMT school. It's the first time he's ever had a textbook. It's like, wow, he had a textbook. Is he going to be able to handle this? And he figured out how to make his study notes and breezed through it and got one of the top marks in his class.
Right.
And so that fear of, okay, if he ever wanted to, could he do this? It's like,
He could.
yeah, because he knew how to learn. He knew his best way of learning, and it wasn't drummed out of him. He didn't feel dispassionate. He was passionate about what he was learning. So he applied himself. And I think that when we can preserve our child's integrity and desire to discover and learn and not lose that passion, then whatever they want to do in the future, they will have the energy internally to be motivated to do it.
Like all of us,
You're
when we
right.
found our teaching passion. You know,
Exactly.
school was so much easier when I was, you know, when I knew what I wanted to be and I was passionate about it. I wanted to get out of here,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And you make those posts, right? Like what curriculum do you like, or how do you homeschool? And you're going to get a million different answers. Well, classical is better, or unschooling is better, or traditional with Rebecca is better, or like co-ops. I mean, you're going to get 100 different answers. But I just want to encourage anybody new that's thinking about it, that's watching this video. You don't have to have all those answers right now.
Exactly.
Sometimes I think the best thing to do is just go grab a couple of workbooks from the Dollar Tree and, you know, get some books that your kids want to read, right? Reading is reading, right? So, and just kind of get to know your kid, get to know their learning style, get to know what motivates them and interests them, and then worry about all that other stuff. You don't have to have the answers to begin doing this.
One thing that my family has found that we absolutely love, I'm going to shout out here for Letters from Afar. Have y'all heard of that?
No.
Well, I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you my world, my address.
Yeah, right.
All right. So here's my little Chinese New Year thing. But all right, so you get this letter once a month, and it's like $5 a month. You get this. It is so cute. It has this little stamp on the, you know, this little sticker on the back. You open it up, and it is Letters from Afar. So it's a writer. It gives you this colorful letter from Isabel, and she's telling you about the adventures and the culture of the place that she visited. So the one I happened to grab, well, is right here.
Vietnam.
And okay, so you read it, and what we do is beforehand I find a dish to make. We make this together as we're learning about and we're using the ingredients from that culture. And then I pull up YouTube videos, and they're seeing the animals, they're seeing the, you know, the temperature and how people are dressing and a little bit about the culture. So we read it, you know, it's beautiful back and front. And each letter is completely different place. And then my favorite part is you get stamps from that location
Oh, cool.
to collect. So, you know, but Letters from Afar, it's $5 a month. You can cancel whenever you want. Don't quote me on that. It might be $5.99 or something. But we love it. And, you know, so that, and that company also has 3 or 4, maybe more other spin-offs of it. So if you're more into the cooking, they have a recipe that comes every month from a different culture, things like that.
And a lot grows out of that, right? They get a letter from Vietnam, and then they want to know about Vietnam.
Yes.
And then you watch a YouTube video or a documentary on Vietnam. That's history that day,
Yes.
right? And so I find, like, we've had things like that before in the past. And I just find, you know, you get this one box or this one letter. Well, one year we did postcards. So we sent a postcard to all 50 states, and we got a postcard from all 50 states.
Fun.
And every time we would get a postcard, we would, okay, let's find out what we can learn about Wisconsin, you know? And so I just find you get those neat little things that are neat in and of themselves, but it's going to spin off with your children and grow into much more.
It's
For
that
science,
doorway.
the biggest cave in the world is in Vietnam. It has a jungle in it and everything.
Oh, wow.
We haven't studied this one yet. I just opened it to show y'all. But like Melissa said, I mean, you can, especially in our day and age, you know, Mary, when you were homeschooling yours, I mean, the resources were drastically different and probably nowhere near as much. But now, I mean, you can do Pinterest and YouTube, and I mean, and you know, it's amazing. But yes, your child can learn so much from that one little letter.
And James is sleeping right now, but when he watches a replay, he usually does for our collaborations. He's from Vietnam. Well, he's from here, but he lives in Vietnam with his family. So,
and he's a
VIP kid teacher.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said he's a VIP kid teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, and I like what Mary was saying about helping her son. I think I discovered as an adult that we all have our own area of genius. And so I think what Mary was talking about with homeschooling is she kind of found her son's area of genius and honed in on that. I always struggled with reading. So I always thought, you know, because you're in the classroom, you compare yourself to the other students. I always thought that I was like unintelligent, like not smart. And I thought, you know, because I'm a bad test taker and I struggled with reading and stuff, I just didn't try. In middle school and freshman year of high school, I was getting like D's. I wasn't turning stuff in, even easy assignments. I didn't care. I didn't try because I didn't think I was smart. And nobody was there to help me with my homework or help me understand or anything. So I just figured like, I thought I wasn't smart. So my mom pulled me out and made me homeschool sophomore year of high school. So I really hated it, but I learned how to study on my own. Mm-hmm. And so then I went back junior year of high school and I said, okay, well, what if I went back to public school junior year? I was like, okay, what if I take easier classes and try my best and just see what kind of grades I could get, right? So I got all A's and B's. And then senior year of high school, I was like, okay, now I'm going to challenge myself and take hard classes and try my best and see what happens. And I got like all A's and B's, maybe 1 C. So then I went to college. So I was like more ready for it. So, but it wasn't until I had already learned a second language and was a teacher in the elementary school myself that I realized from the perspective of a teacher, I realized that there aren't dumb students. That kids compare themselves to other kids according to like their test scores or their reading level or their math or whatever. But really, like everybody has their own area of genius, and it may not be something that's tested on in school. You know, like mine is like learning languages and be public speaking and being able to socialize and talk to people and be an encourager to others. And I sewed my own wedding dress. You know, artistic stuff is more my area. I'm very right brain. And so as an adult, one time I told someone like, yeah, I'm not very smart or whatever. They said, Evelyn, you learned a second language. You're not allowed to say you're not smart anymore. So it's like, I kind of discovered as an adult that like, I'm not dumb. And I think homeschooling, we're able to like help our kids discover what kinds of things they're good at. You know what I mean? So that they can have like more confidence in something, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool.
Definitely
makes sense. But yeah.
Wow. My brain is still thinking. I'm just thinking and thinking. So do you guys have anything else to add? We've been on here over an hour, I just realized. Sorry.
I'm so amazed that one of you has a son who's an author and one of you has a son who created a video game. Like, I'm like, and my kids are like, they already know more piano than me and they're so little and they already know like as much gardening as I know. You know, like they're like, and they're going to have so much of an advantage with Spanish because they're growing up with Spanish and hearing it since babies. Whereas I learned Spanish as an adult. My husband learned English as an adult. So we have a second language, but they're growing up with 2 first languages. So it's like, man, these kids don't know how good they have it.
Right?
Yeah.
That they get that opportunity to learn and that we as the moms, we have the opportunity to be a part of our kids' education. You know, it's so cool.
One of my favorite things that I always tell people, you know, because I was a public school teacher and I remember seeing kids coming into school exhausted, because they were so rushed in the morning and, you know, they were still hungry. They didn't have time to eat breakfast or they didn't get a good night's sleep or whatever. And so as a mom, if you have your kids in school, you only get them the most stressful times of the day. And that makes me just want to cry, like you get your kids when you're trying to rush them out the door. And you get your kids when you're trying to rush them through dinner and bath and homework and bed. So their memories of childhood and your memories are stress. It's, she won't listen to this and the bickering and whatever. But I get my kids as a public school teacher or private. I did both. I got your children during the most quality time of their day. They were the most alert. They were the most, responsive during that quality time. But I get my kids during that time. I get to enjoy my kids when they are playful and wanting to learn and interested and engaging. And I get to see those sides, that side of each of my children, and really take advantage of it. I really feel like that is something I'm able to give them as the best part of me too. Because when I was going to work and my husband was going to work all day, both of us would come home stressed and tired.
Yeah.
And, so we're both giving each other our best. And, they're only little for so long. I only get them for so long. And so,
I felt that when I was working at the elementary school, I was an ELL aide, and then I was working at a daycare after school. So I was doing after school care. So the kids that were going to elementary school and then after school. So I was seeing somebody, I was raising somebody else's kids from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I'm like, when do they see their parents? Yeah, weekends and summers and stuff. But I was trying to do those jobs so that I would convince myself when I have kids, then I can take my kids to work with me and I'll get to see them in the hallway or whatever, or maybe work in their classrooms sometimes or whatever. But then when I became a mom, I'm like, that's not enough though. They're mine. I want to be a part of their education. I'm selfish. I want them. You can't have them.
You said weekends and summers. If you're working parents, summer doesn't exist. You're still sending them to daycare or some type of
camp
thing until they're old enough to stay home by themselves during the summer. That still doesn't exist.
So my relationship with my kids, even though they were younger, I mean, they were third grade, first grade, and 4, but my relationship with them was 100 times better when I started homeschooling. Just for the reasons Michelle said, because I wasn't always stressful about doing all that work or getting them on time or following somebody else's schedule. We had our own schedule, and it seemed we were doing a lot, but it just seemed a little bit more laid back or whatever. So the kids kind of, their personalities were able to come back. They relaxed a little bit, and I enjoy being around my children.
I don't know if any of you have a child like this, but one of my children, I don't think would do well sitting still all day, because I can't get her to sit still for an out school class. But I mean, it might be her age, but also she's strong-willed. Okay, well, it's going to come out who she is. But anyway, one of my children, I feel like she's going to flourish a lot better, not being told to sit still and be quiet, because she tends to want to do the opposite of what she's told.
Yeah.
And Evelyn, I think that's the whole point. It's like children aren't necessarily meant to sit still. I think that's one of the core beliefs I have about childhood, is that children are meant to engage their whole bodies and live their life and learn from that living. And sitting in a desk in a classroom is like the opposite of what's really intended. It's most convenient as a society for us to do it that way, but it's not the natural way for a child to learn. So your child is going to learn when you're gardening with them. Your child is going to learn when you're cooking. It's not about the subjects and the curriculum, in my opinion. It's about living life and learning the lesson in each moment. And that, to me, is the richness of unschooling, is what I call it. But, don't worry about the textbook. Don't worry about those things. Are they engaged with what they're uniquely interested in any given moment? And then they're learning, and they will continue to apply those skills of curiosity and investigation and wonderment about whatever is next. That's what you want to preserve. You don't want to make sure they know how to memorize and regurgitate. That's not learning. That just isn't. But keeping a sense of wonder and saying, wow, I wonder how that happens, and saying, oh, well, where can we find out? And they pull out a book, or they look on the internet, or they just watch and observe nature to discover the answer. That's learning. And they will be able to take that skill of being able to just make their own discoveries with them throughout the rest of their lives. So yeah, don't have them sit still in the desk. Like, I don't think that's necessarily conducive to learning.
I had an interesting experience today with my Deborah. She's 4.5. I was trying to read a book with Esther one-on-one. Esther's almost 6. She's learning to read. And Deborah started throwing a fit. She ended up ripping the book, and I got a little mad, and I was like, do you want to help me tape the book? And she didn't want to help me. She was throwing a fit. So I taped the book, and I said to her several times, would you like a hug? Do you want me to leave you alone? What would you like? And when she finally calmed down, what she wanted me to read one-on-one with her. And she wanted me to read the words one by one so she could repeat them. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that's what she wanted, So it's cool because she's seeing you're giving one-on-one attention to my sister and you're reading with her. So I want to do that. So it's like with Deborah, when it's her idea, then cool. Then she wants to do it. So I'm letting her have the idea first, and then she wants to do it. It's not me saying, you're going to sit here and read this book. It's her being like, well, I want one-on-one time reading a book with you too, And she's the one that learned piano from her sister. I didn't even teach her how to play piano. Her sister showed her. And I'm hearing Esther say to her siblings too, like, Joshy and Deborah, you can't fight with each other. You have to be nice and stuff. So they're problem solving their own issues before I even have to step in. And then Esther will say, Deborah, I'm going to work on my math. You need to go practice piano while I'm working on my math. So it's like, are you the teacher?
Yes, let her be the teacher, because the child as teacher feels really empowered. They're excited about sharing. And then you just help create the container for that to happen and adjust whatever they're presenting if it's not accurate. But yeah, let them be the teacher. When I was growing up, my parents didn't speak English until I was 15. So they, my older siblings taught me how to speak English. So by the time I was in grade 1, I could speak. But yeah, so that was just really letting children learn from each other, I think, is one of the best things they can do.
Mary, was it Dutch?
Yeah, Dutch.
Yeah, what was your first language?
Yeah, Dutch. My parents were from Holland.
Right?
Yeah.
That's my only Dutch word I know. Thank you. Dankjewel.
Do you still speak Dutch?
Only, well, no, not really. My mom's, with her dementia now, is mostly speaking Dutch, so I can speak Dutch. That's not a problem. But I don't have as many opportunities to do so. So on Facebook sometimes with my cousins who are still in Holland. My mom was 10th oldest of 20 kids, so 3 immigrated to Australia, 3 to Canada, and the rest stayed in Holland. So I have like 96 first cousins that are spread over the globe, and so a lot of them are Dutch.
We'll take a trip. I'll go with you. Let me know when you're ready. I'll go back.
Yeah.
I love it.
I feel like I'm really able to preserve their childhood a little bit longer, not by sheltering them like the world wants to say, but just by preserving them, letting them play, letting them play and explore and finding interest. My daughter's 12, and that's kind of like, we're starting to see hormones come out and the anger and stuff. And I'm able to kind of like coach her through that. And also find, as she's going from, Barbies to the next stage, I'm able to kind of like coach her into the next stage.
Yes.
And right now we're both like happy planner addicted. And, so I got one and started doing stuff with it. And she was like, I want one too. And so we found this interest that we have together, and we turned on, a 12-year-old appropriate movie and watched it together, and we had snacks and drinks. And, as had mommy daughter night, and we started up our planners, and and once a week we sit down and conference together, and she writes down her homeschool stuff, when her tests are, and things like that. But you talk to other parents who have 12-year-olds, and it's, oh, she's just attitude. I don't know what to do with her, and it's different. And that might not be 12, it might be 15 or whatever, but I can grab hold and, and just kind of coach her through those difficult years instead of let the world coach her through those years.
Exactly. Now I have a completely different question, which is, as homeschool parents, do you think it affects how you teach with VIPKid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it's a twist because I have that public school teacher, private school teacher that pops in me every once in a while. And then I have the homeschool side that has had more years that kind of interweave. But yes, I definitely, that definitely affects my teaching in the classroom and how the patience that I have with my VIPKid students, the love I show them, the grace that I give them, because I can kind of see more where they're coming from, and
Yeah, exactly. And even more so to see how incredibly structured they are in China versus our educational system. And I mean, talking about the continuum from unschooling, like no structure, to what they're experiencing in China. And just for me, it's in part also coaching the parents there. Like, it's okay to relax a bit. One of the things that I have had, I think I've become a magnet for students, VIPKid students who struggle in reading. And I had one little boy, and he would not read anything on the screen. So, and I had the mom's email address. So she sent me pictures of him, and I would tell her the theme. And so then instead of reading what was on the screen, I made a booklet. So, when we were studying school, it became VIPKid school, and he could read who he was and, who his teacher is. And so I just made custom readers for him so that then he would, and she would print it up. I would email it to her. She would print it up. He would be holding his booklet, and we'd be reading it together. So we just stopped with what was on the slides because I incorporated those key learning points.
I know. I'm not brave enough for that.
So it's like,
okay. Good teacher I've ever heard of.
I play with my friends. So it became, what does he do with his friends? And just, it wasn't always just pictures of him. It was other things, but he was so excited because it was a book about him. And so, it is extra work, but I find that, and not every student in VIPKid needs that, or I wouldn't exist as a teacher, but being able to do that, knowing how much difference that made for my son, I love being able to do that for some of my VIPKid students, to just help them get it. Now he doesn't need that. Now the student is like fine reading the stuff, but to get him over that hump, he needed about, from units 4 through 8, I did that in level 2 for him. And it was such a joy to be able to see him cross that hurdle.
Yeah.
That's great. I think the amount of praise is one for me, because I'm, because as a teacher, I did it. As a homeschool mom, I'm constantly praising those little things, finding something to praise. If if I have a difficult student or a student that's really struggling, I'm going to find something to give you a star over, and it's going to be genuine, So just that part, that teacher part comes out of me, that, that this was a good class, Mom, in the feedback, so-and-so had a good class, and this is why, and we're going to find reasons why.
Awesome.
I think the other way around is true too, because VIPKid has made me a better mom, I think, because when I was just a stay-at-home mom and struggling financially and stuff, I felt more stressed, and I felt more imprisoned by the role of stay-at-home mom. But being able to have this outlet and a way to make money from home, and a way to socialize with other adults and stuff, it helps me not feel trapped and not feel suppressed, but I'll express myself creatively. You know, I like culture and travel, but I get to travel to China every morning, you know, and I also teach Spanish on OutSchool and stuff. And so it's neat because being able to have that outlet, it makes me a more patient mom. So yeah, I'm constantly looking for ways to be more patient with my kids. So if I feel myself getting upset about something, I remove myself from the situation. And so my kids are learning independence in some ways because they I don't do everything for them. They have to do a lot of things themselves, and they're little, but they're learning how to do it. And sometimes I want to do things for them, but if they ask to help, I say yes, even though I would prefer to make the lunch. I'm like, you want to help? Okay. So even though it's easier to do it myself, like, they're learning a life skill, you know? So I'm like, okay, yeah, you can push the buttons down on the toaster and push the buttons on the microwave or whatever. So yeah.
You know, when my son was little, he loved to learn how to cook. And, you know, I would just let him put whatever ingredients he wanted together. You know, it was not about following a recipe. It's like, what do you want to make? What do you think will taste good together? And letting him make it. And then he made his own little cookbook of all his recipes. And then he printed them up and he gave them to all the UPS drivers that he knew, or all the train engineers or whatever. But like, again, that was his book publishing, right? He needed to make, not a real published book, but letting them experiment. Like, don't be so concerned about how it tastes. They're going to think it tastes great because they made it. You know? And then through that experimenting, what should we do different next time? Well, you know, for years, my son thought that everything needed paprika. It doesn't matter what it was. Everything had to have a good amount of paprika. And then over time, he realized maybe not everything needed the paprika. But yeah, that was his secret ingredient, his secret sauce. You know, so you know, let them experiment. You know, and then I would say, well, baking soda will help the muffins rise. Well, I don't want to put it in this time. Okay, let's not. Like, don't get all in like, oh, we're wasting ingredients. No, it's a science experiment. You didn't put in baking soda or baking powder. Well, let's see what happened. Oh, that didn't taste nearly as good, Mom. It's like, right. Okay, so what do we know? It's going in next time. You know, so letting them make those decisions is really awesome.
And learning from mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, guys, this has been a great conversation. I'm really interested. I don't have much to add because I'm not a homeschooling mom, but I love hearing what you guys have had to say. And the chat was booming. I am so sorry I did not get into the chat very much today, but you guys were awesome.
Rachel's in the chat. Hi, Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel. And Teacher Renee. Thank you guys so much, everybody, for coming. And if you have questions, leave them below and I will outsource them to somebody that knows more than me. And that's it. That's all I have.
Awesome.
Nice talking to you.
Bye. Take care.
Homeschooling.
Yeah.